Hello, welcome to my presentation over the Safety Program Management. In this presentation, I will be going over Brown Airlines and the audit and the process on how to identify and do certain areas of an audit. Throughout this presentation, I hope that you learn something about the documentation and all the effort that truly goes into an audit. The process of an audit is really important for the growth and safety of a business. This kind of presentation will be going over all the resources and materials that you might need when performing one on your own. So let's get started with the statistic analysis of the graphs and the reporting systems that will happen over the 12 months of documentation. These graphs will show the peaks and valleys of what is going on in the workplace and what are the areas that might need some growth or risk assessments to better help the employees in this company. So it is very important that the documentation really show what's happening in the workplace. Starting with Brown's monthly reporting system. Right off the jump, you can automatically see Brown has a simple reporting system of where it looks to be they only require their members to have a minimum of 25 incidents per month. And with Brown's monthly reporting system, it has some faults. Over the year of documentation, Brown has made it clear that they don't mind the simple system of only reporting the 25 incidents per month. There is no rhyme or reason to use this type of method when it comes to showing the accuracy of what type of incidents are being shown each month. It's super important that whenever you are documenting the month-to-month incidents, that it shows what are the differences between each month. What are the differences that really matter? So like between January and May, you might have risks that don't really show during June and August, that you might have completely different risks. So only having a minimum that are required of your members doesn't really show that that is an important program that they want to implement. So this process definitely needs some work and needs to be reassessed because it doesn't tell you anything on what's truly happening in the workplace. Having a minimum of 25 a month is a good start for the first half of the documentation progress or process. Having that process start at a minimum will teach your employees and it will show how to do the documentation. But as moving forward, the incidents aren't changing. And you will see that in future slides. That this type of documentation doesn't really work when you look at it as a whole. You need more effort from management in order to see changes and more safety initiatives that can be implemented on your employees to give them a better working environment. So let's move on to Brown's weekly reports. The weekly reports will show you what days of the week do they have the most incidents being reported. This will show you where the problems lie on their day-to-day work. So the weekly report system has some potential in telling you where the problems might lie. Now looking at this graph, you can tell that the brown weeks show some peaks of higher reporting happening at the beginning of the week, with Monday being at 54. It seems that that is their highest day of reporting. It seems that they have more incidents and problems during this day, whether that be customer problems or just it's more busier than usual on a Monday. So with Monday being the highest at 54, it shows that having more incidents on Monday is a higher day, or it is a harder day for most. Being some employees take the full weekend for a break, depending on the shifts that they might be on. They aren't fully acclimated back to their jobs. They might not have taken that weekend to actually relax and decompress. So having a fast-paced job like being at an airport, it has a lot of physical demands and mental demands on you. And with Friday being the second highest incident reporting day, there's a lot more people in that airport on those days. I feel like with Friday being second to highest, the weekends are usually the times where a lot of people are going on weekend trips and last minute trips. So it's a more busier day like Monday. And with that being said, you can tell that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are relatively lower, with it being the middle of the week. So again, the weekly reporting system can show you what days are more complicated than others. This will help you identify certain ways of attempting to re-navigate plans for your employees to have a lower incident rate, because that is the ultimate goal. We want to deviate some of these risks and incidents that are happening in a high risk workplace. With the group versus non-group members, these are the two members who will be reporting these incidents. So as in previous slides, group members and non-group members have been the ones that are doing the 25 a month. They are the ones who report weekly, Sunday through Saturday. Group members are the ones who are doing most of the reporting. There are 5 group members total in this program. With the 5, they are the ones who communicate about the incidents monthly. Although that there are only 5 group members, this is a program that implements all of them, all employees, whether you're group or non-group. And while looking at this graph, you can tell how the group members make up for 74% of the record keeping. So the non-group members only account for 26%. And when you think about that, well, that's quite low. Thinking about, the 5 group members are still employees. They are just 5 employees who volunteered to be at the top of what's going on from day to day. So these group members and non-group members have the biggest roles when it comes to record keeping, because they are the ones who are supplying you with the data that shows their day-to-day process. And with them, there really wouldn't be much of a program, because your employees are your number one priority. Their safety is your number one priority. And with that being said, giving them the freedom to have that that open communication with reporting the incidents, it really helps. Another thing I want to add is, although there are only 2 groups for the reporting system, they work together. So just because group members hold the 74% of the record keeping, it doesn't mean that the non-group members aren't being implemented just as much. It just means that with this graph being shown here, that the group members are really taking initiative to be on top of everything, on top of incident reporting. Although that they're only doing 25 a month, there is still growth for this process. I feel like in the end, there should be more non-group members reporting, because that might show a difference in data. You don't know what the outcome might be. There just might need to be some changes in this process, because I feel like it should be an even balance of group members and non-group members. The graph we are looking at now is Brown's time of day reports. This graph shows how many incidents are being reported per hour, starting from 1 a.m. ending at 12 p.m. or 11 p.m. Brown has a fluctuating data. They are up and down in their reporting system. Their data shows a peak at 10 a.m., but the incidents start showing around 1 a.m. At 1 a.m., they have 1 incident, which relatively is a slower time of day. Not a lot of people are awake, so that feels like it could be accurate. So with that peak being at 10 a.m., it slowly grows. It slowly starts growing at 6 a.m. From 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., you see an increase in reports. That's usually when the time of most people are starting to come around and it starts to get a little busier. And you see that with this data, you see at noon, which is usually around the time you have a lot of people on break, there's not a lot of people around. Some people might be going for lunch, employee, non-employee. There's probably a lot less traffic around this time, with it being only 8 incidents that are being reported. The tasks they are doing are documented around more traffic flow. So between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., that the graph shows an increase and decrease. And the graph shows an increase from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. The increase counts to the rest or lack of it, and it shows on the employee incidents. The trend on this graph is that Brown's time of day really matters in a sense of how poorly or efficient their employees are depending on the time of day. They seem to struggle as the day goes on. It seems that they could use more effective plans, or just they could use more effective planning in their day-to-day routines. They should really start identifying the problems that are occurring between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. It seems that there is a huge increase of incidents happening at those times. And with the time of day, it would matter at the end of the day, because every day is different. Like in the previous slide, Monday had the most reporting going on. And normally you would think, well, Monday is kind of a slower day, Well, you can think of it as, yes, it might be a slower day, but that also might hinder your task that you are giving if you don't have the appropriate sleep or the appropriate means to get the task done. So when you look at this graph, all you see is that there are 35 incidents being documented at 10 a.m. But why? Why are there so many incidents happening at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m. or 2 p.m.? Their valley is at noon. And when you think about, well, why would they decrease so much in the middle of the day? It's probably because they aren't all going 100 at that point. That's middle of the day, and depending on the shift that you're on, it's probably chaos by that time, and everybody's ready for a break. So I wouldn't say that their time of day looks abnormal. This seems like it could be a pretty accurate representation of what their hourly reporting looks like. Now, looking at Brown's type of incidents, the trend showing in this graph tells you that Brown has a huge ergonomic issue. Their ergonomic reports total to 49, which ergonomic is a very important thing. Ergonomic issues stem from improper work areas or improper I blanked. It can stem from anything that can cause stress on the body. So, with that being said, an ergonomic issue is a big issue, ultimately. And they have many cases where it might be a lack of sleep or poor plan task. When looking at data that supports this graph, you have a lot of incidents pertaining to typing issues or lack of sleep or lack of lighting. They have a lot of issues with poor designs in the workplace. The second and third type are the chemicals and tool science. The data supporting these of materials. And you will see later on in this presentation some specific incidents that pertain to this. That are being reported are regarding and fall. These go to show that there aren't as many compared to other in the ground. There are definitely ways to decrease the ergonomic issue that Brown has. They can start with assessing the needs of their employees. You can start by rearranging their task. You can redirect their task to maybe switching their schedule to where they can have certain days. There are many ways to fix an ergonomic issue. You just have to start addressing them. But it seems that Brown doesn't address most of the problems that they have. They don't prioritize this program, and you can tell by the data that is being shown. This graph shows the recordables, first aid, and the near miss reports together. This kind of shows that Brown really doesn't prioritize the documentation process, and this type of process is crucial for improvement for workplace safety. They had 6 recordables in 1 calendar year of business. March and July both having 1 recordable and 1 first aid. This doesn't seem accurate when you truly look at the recordables that are being documented. I believe that having a good documentation system will identify the areas needed for improvement, and it promotes proactive learning and teaching for your employees. When looking at the type of incidents that are occurring, you see an organized problem ultimately. They aren't prioritizing their employees. They're doing the bare minimum. In this slide, we will be talking about the OIR. And in the OIR, it is a incident rate. And this graph shows the incident rate for the company over a 1 calendar year. The incident rates are sectioned by color, just like the HIRA analysis would be. So, with having rates of 0 to 1.5 would be classified as green, which is inherently good or normal. It is something you want to strive for. Having rates of a 2.5 to 7 would be classified as yellow, which is needed of assessment and improvement methods. Having rates at 4.5 to 6 would be classified as red, which is the highest rate of incidents and can also be seen as the worst rates. Your goal is to stay out of red. Most incidents that are based in red need or are fundamentally wrong. They are needing some serious changes to the way that they do things. And as seen in this graph, January had the highest OIR rate of 6.51. That is in the red. Some rates are inherently higher, just for the simple fact that some of the roles that are done in specific companies have higher risk. But by nature, Browns does not inherit the higher risk with their duties. January was a tough time for Brown. Not sure why, depending on, looking at the data. January, they had a lot of issues with ergonomics. In January, they had one recordable. And that recordable was a frostbite incident. Sorry that took me so long. It was a frostbite incident of the maintenance crew. So when you're looking at an OIR, you are looking at the rates per month of their incidents. This is an important graph because this shows you the overall rate. This will tell you if your company is in the yellow, red, or green for the month. This is a very important graph. Moving on to the top 5 near misses. These will include the top 5 near misses, and it will include a safety discussion for each near miss. It will kind of give you a brief description of some methods or approaches to take on correcting. Near miss number 1. This happened in the month of January 10th on Monday at 8 p.m. This was reported by a non-group member. The incident was a tool/equipment use. The employee was using a trash compactor and was putting his or her hands in the compactor to put more trash in it as it was lowering. After looking over the data, there were 17 cases of this one incident, which means they are lacking certain things on doing this job properly and doing it safely. Near miss number 2. This near miss occurred in January on Sunday at 6 p.m. This report was reported by a group member. The incident was an electrical incident. A demolition craftsman was clearing out an old shop area in the airport and was removing conduit with a reciprocating saw and cut into an energized volt line of 110. The work controlled document explicitly required verification that the line was either de-energized and air-gapped or covered by a lockout-tagout. Investigators learned that based on work performed a month before, the craftsman assumed that electricians had de-energized the circuit. He also failed to request a zero-energy check or complete a thorough walkdown to verify that all electrical services was air-gapped. So assuming the prior months, the permit was still in effect. This slide promotes a safety discussion on near miss 1 and near miss number 2. On near miss 1, it was a trash compactor incident. And a few safety tips that I would like to discuss and some safety facts on near miss number 1 is caught in or struck by are the most common hazards in industrial and manufacturing settings. Employees should never be using their hands directly in the danger zone when attempting to dislodge or feed trash. Use specifically designed hand tools and require PPE when it is required to handle or move material in the danger zone of the trash compactor. And noting that, it seems like with Brown, they aren't given or they aren't using the specific tools that are designed to do this task. Because with this hand tool, it should decrease the likelihood of getting your hand stuck or smashed in a trash compactor because your hand shouldn't even be clear or be near the opening of the danger zone. And all operators should be trained on how to correctly load the materials into the trash compactor. Moving on to near miss number 2. That was the energized 110 volt line. So before starting the demolition task, there are 7 steps to de-energizing and doing a lockout-tagout process. But in this case, the craftsman should have verified the lockout and maintained the lockout. Do not start without testing the source to make sure it is completely de-energized. Permits will be mandatory for inspection prior to start. Never assume the permit is still in effect. Take the precautions to assure the task is safe. Failing to do the required steps could result in death or serious injuries. Near miss number 3. This near miss happened in April on Friday at 2 p.m. A non-group member reported this. This incident dealt with chemicals. An employee was mixing chemicals to fertilize the garden area of the airport when she grabbed the wrong bottle and was ready to add it to the mixture when she noticed the skull and crossbones on the label. Near miss number 4. This near miss happened in the month of April on Tuesday at 12 p.m. This was reported by a non-group member, and the incident is dealing with burns. The employee was checking hot water pipe when he almost came in contact with the hot water pipe that had no insulation. Moving on to the safety discussion of near miss 3 and 4. Near miss 3 was the one pertaining to chemicals. So a few safety tips on this one is to take personal precautions with identifying the chemicals before handling. After identifying the chemicals, understand the substance and handle with care and use the identified precautions and PPE while handling. Keep hazardous chemicals stored in the appropriate location away from daily used chemicals. Label and document the chemicals that are being stored. This will deviate the mixing of hazardous and non-hazardous chemicals. Near miss number 4 was pertaining to Baines. Oh, goodness. Hold on. Near miss number 4 was pertaining to burns. Some safety tips for this near miss include non-insulated pipes can be insulated to reduce the external hazards that the employees face. Applying thermal insulators such as fiberglass insulation combined with special plastic or foil wrapping on the exposed cold or hot pipes can deviate that external hazard. This will reduce burns and reduce the heat loss and can raise the water temps 2 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than uninsulated pipes can deliver, allowing you to lower your water temp setting and saving money. Near miss number 5. This near miss happened in the month of July on Monday at 2 p.m. A group member reported this. This incident pertains to falling objects. An employee was walking under a partially completed framework without a hard hat when another employee lost a hold of his hammer from the second story. The hammer plunged to the ground, missing the hatless employee by inches. Near miss number 5, dealing with the falling object. It is important to remember to always wear the appropriate PPE when walking in an active construction site. Wearing the PPE is mandatory for employees. Utilize a passive system approach to reduce the hazards of falling objects. For example, mesh netting, tool canopies with side protection. For active use of the tools, use a tool lanyard to prevent the tools from falling when dropped. This will minimize serious injuries, especially when on an elevated surface and active walkers on site. Moving on to the hierograph. The hierochart shows you the severity and probability levels of each incident, with green being negligible, yellow being tolerable, and red being intolerable. Although Brown Airline has a 41 negligible count on ergonomic issues, I still believe that by changing the ergonomic issues, you will see a big change in the overall efficiency of their employees. And in this graph alone, you can see that with chemicals and with tool/equipment use, there is a lack of training. And that lack of training could make or break this company, because there is no need for your employees to have such a high incident where there are intolerable situations in tool/equipment use. And thinking back to the near miss number 2 and near miss number 1, near miss number 1 was the tool/equipment use that dealt with the employees using a trash compactor and putting their hands in the compactor to put more trash in it as it was lowering. 17 cases is not tolerable. That just proves that this company does not show the right amount of involvement with their employees. If they're having 22 incidents being shown with their lack of training, lack of knowledge, it's not something that should be occurring. And so that is something you should think about before working for this company, is their lack of knowledge of the overall usage of most of the things or most of the tasks that are being handed out. Moving on to the indirect and direct cost of the near misses. Looking at this table, you will see that there are 5 near misses. This shows the injury type, the direct cost, the indirect cost, the combined cost, and the amount of sales it would take to cover the cost of the one incident. So the highest one being the tool/equipment use. Their direct costs for one instance, and the injury being amputation, it costs $96,000 for the direct cost. And the direct costs are the immediate which are the immediate workers' compensation claims, which cover medical costs, and it costs for the payments that an injured worker need directly. And the indirect costs are like the scheduling to replace that worker while they are recovering. When looking at this, I don't believe that these are necessary incidents for the line of work. Brown Airlines needs serious reassessing on their employing or their employees, and they need to take more consideration towards their employees. Because even with an electric shock, which should not be, an electric shock can 75 to 95% be avoided. When these employees have the right training and knowledge before performing any task, these incidents can be avoided. %, they can be avoided as long as they are found, assessed, and prevented. But when looking at the data behind these, it does not look like they are being assessed. They are being found, but they aren't being assessed because they are being repeated. Now looking at the root cause analysis of near miss number 1, you can really get deep in the understanding of what has happened in this near miss with the materials, methods, machines, measurements, environment, and people. Those are the 6 tails of the fishbone. The machine itself has preventative measures that were not being followed. No safeguards. Those 2 alone can be prevented. Now looking at the person at hand, they are tired. They have physical stress. This is a demanding job. The operator did not use the proper tools. Using their hands to feed trash is not acceptable. But it does not mean that it is the employee's fault. It just means that they aren't trained properly and they don't have the knowledge to perform that task. With the methods of them doing so, they had no hand tools. They need more than one person to properly do the task. So moving on to the environment, there's a lack of training, as I stated before. And when you think about this process, you don't want to leave them unsupervised, because this is a really quick incident that could turn into an accident. This can turn into a recordable real quick when it's unsupervised or they don't have the right training. And they are subject to dirty things. You can get a disease dealing with trash. There is bloodborne things that are attached to trash. Moving on to materials and measurements. Some of the materials, they are handling large quantities of trash. They are dealing with steel press, which is the ram, and they are dealing with cylinders. And the measurements of this is They did not use a vision system. They did not properly fill the compactor. So all of these positives and negatives, which I don't have any positives for this. I really don't. And it's hard to find some positives in some incidents. But with this near miss, there was a lot that could have been done to change the outcome or to change the process of this task. Now moving on to the direct and indirect cost of recordables. Now looking at the recordables, you can see that there are 6 recordables that have been documented from the Brown airline. And with the freezing injury type, there are 5 fingers to the hand, and each one is a recordable. So the direct cost of that injury is $115,000, and that's just for the direct consequences of the injury. And the combined cost of the direct and indirect cost is $242,000. And the sales that need to occur to cost or to cover the cost of that is $1 million. I also don't believe this is justified, because when looking at the OSHA 300 log, this employee took their glove off in a supervised task and was not directed to put the glove back on. So this incident or this recordable could have been prevented if there would have been safety measures put in place for this type of work. There could have been a complete different turnaround for this employee. This employee could have kept their hand if they would have identified the situation or identified the hazards of this situation and implemented a safety net for this individual. Having brakes could have prevented this frostbite situation. So I do not believe that most of the injuries that are happening in this workplace are justified. I do believe that this company has more faults, and yeah, I think they have more faults than they do prioritize their employees. You can tell off the bat that they aren't prioritizing their employees. What we are looking at now is the OSHA 300 log. This log documents all of your recordables and all the information needed when documenting a recordable. And as you can see here, with my airline, they did not do the necessary tasks or the necessary documentation when it came to documenting the employees in a timely manner or taking care of the information that is needed to be provided when this incident occurs. Because as you can see here, I said before I have 6 recordables, but here they have only documented 3. You must document. You must document after you have 8 hours to notify OSHA. And you must document after 7 calendar days after receiving the information. So overall, there are some work that needs to be done in implementing an entirely new process to documentation for the Brown industry. Now that we have looked at the statistics of the brown industry, I want to implement a program that can help with the mental. Whoa, hold up. I want to implement something that will help with the mental and physical aspects of each employee. And I would like to call it the Health Hustlers. This is a wellness program oriented towards the employees. So, starting with the wellness program, this is going to be taking a new approach to your well-being inside and out of the workplace. And it can start with the personal challenge and freedom to engage in some wellness activities. So, note number 1, this program will be focusing on stress and physical engagement. Brown wants to implement a more involved workplace with rewarding and healthy outcomes for the mind and body. Utilizing this program can show personal and professional improvement, and it will expand your resilience, and it has the ability to be a new personal outlet. Now that I've introduced what we want to do with the program, what are the goals for the program? Well, the number 1 goal is to improve your health and well-being. That is the ultimate goal of this program. It is to get you feeling right in your mind and in your body. So, with empowering employees with health, education, and lifestyle skills, then enable them to achieve their best possible health. But specifically, if we want to positively affect employees' morale and job satisfaction. And so by doing that, we optimize performance and productivity by social connectedness and mindfulness. The next step of the program is to identify what does your involvement entail. So with this program, we need 5 volunteers to be on the wellness committee for tracking 1 group per person. So, and what this will look like for the first 12 weeks, you will be cut into 3 different weeks of goal setting and progress. So within week 1 through 4, you will be getting started on what areas of personal growth you want to begin with. And then next you're going to start setting small to medium goals to begin your wellness journey. And you're going to do that by making a list of your health needs, which are your limitations, and your nutrition requirements. After you've completed weeks 1 through 4, week 5 through 8, you have to plan and develop your upcoming midpoint. You have a plan that is developed for your upcoming midpoint check at the end of week 5. Next, you're going to start your developed plan and begin your wellness journey. By the end of week 8, you will have begun your journey, and this will be the start of a new era, making changes to the plan if needed. This program is completely under your fullest control. After completing week 5 through 8, weeks 9 through 12, you will start to see your plan really in full effect. So through week 9 through 12, you will have the options of joining in a group involvement with your goals, but it is not required. You can be in your solo dolo era. We love that. So, and next, you're going to be showing improvements on your goals, whether that be mental or physical goals. And then we're going to have a milestone review in weeks 9 through 12. And then after assessing each and one of y'all's goals with your selected volunteer, you'll continue what works for you. Now that you have identified what this program is, what we want from you, and what your involvement will be, we will be talking about how will we get the message out and what are the rewards. So this will be a bi-weekly event, having social events that will enable a stress-free and more involved with fun-filled activities. This will have a greater impact when done together. This promotes more engaging and motivation for the wellness of each other. So now that you know how we will get the message out, we will have bi-weekly events. We will be moving on to what are the rewards. So the incentive list, the rewards are given monthly. And some of those incentives can be gift cards, quality gym bags, company swag, 1 month of a complimentary membership to a specified facility, extra paid time off from 8 to 12 hours. You will have off-site wellness classes of your choice, bonuses for hitting health goals. How will this be measured? So after talking about that we need the 5 volunteers to be on the wellness committee for tracking one group, well, that group will be of 5 to 10 individuals per person. I know this sounds like a big commitment, but ultimately it is good for not only yourself but for the group as well. And so, how will this be measured? This program will be tackled monthly by management and the volunteers. Their duties will include overseeing the progress, being an accessory to their motivation and upliftment. This will take a village and commitment to ourselves for the personal and social growth that will flourish from this program. This is not supposed to be a burden to enrich a new personal achievement for your mental and physical health. This program will evolve over time with the participation of the employees. The involvement will be required, but it does not dictate the direction that you take for personal growth. And like I stated before, this program is in full control of you. So we just ask that you set goals for yourself that you are willing to achieve. Now that we are getting to the end of the presentation, a safety quote that I really enjoyed was, "It takes leadership to improve safety." And when you read this, you understand completely what I mean by Brown Airlines isn't necessarily one of the worst, because I know we can see a lot worse, but they definitely need some improvement for their employees. Their employees don't deserve the bare minimum. And with their documentation and the data being shown with their documentation, it just doesn't seem like they prioritize the human beings that they hire. And so when reading this quote, "It takes leadership to improve safety," I truly believe it does. It takes the leadership of management and the commitment of management to redirect the directive that is already being shown. Now, speaking on this company, I do not believe that I would invest in this company. I do not believe that I would spend time working for this company. I think that this company overall would not be the best fit for me. But I have enjoyed learning about this company. I have enjoyed doing this process and understanding the ins and outs of the process. I look forward to hearing your questions. So if you have any questions, just let me know below. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending time learning about the audit process and the overall data behind the Brown Airlines. I really enjoyed talking about it and understanding the different aspects of it. I understand that I have some areas of growth, or that I need in presenting this and understanding it myself, but I feel like I did a pretty good job. So thank you so much for listening.